Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh sat down for a TV interview Monday as he faces new allegations of sexual misconduct. A second woman, Deborah Ramirez, now accuses Kavanaugh of misconduct in the 1980s. The judge vowed he would not back down. Kavanaugh and the first woman to accuse him of misconduct, Christine Blasey Ford, are set to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee Thursday. CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes has more.
Not going to let false accusations drive us out of this process.
With his wife Ashley at his side, Judge Brett Kavanaugh told Fox News he never sexually assaulted anyone.
We're looking for a fair process where I can be heard and defend my integrity, my lifelong record of promoting dignity and equality for women, starting with the women who knew me when I was 14 years old. I'm not going anywhere.
Kavanaugh gave the rare interview after 53-year-old Deborah Ramirez of Colorado told The New Yorker that as a student at Yale University, Kavanaugh had exposed himself at a drunken dormitory party, thrust his penis in her face, and caused her to touch it without her consent as she pushed him away. Jane Mayer wrote the article with Ronan Farrow.
We found another classmate who remembers hearing about it that night or the next day.
Classmates who were at the party told The New Yorker they don't recall Kavanaugh doing that. But Kavanaugh's Yale roommate, James Roche, a software CEO, told a San Francisco reporter today that Kavanaugh was frequently drunk and incoherently. He said he never saw Kavanaugh engage in sexual misconduct, but called the story believable. As protesters filled the halls of Congress,
we believe Debbie Ramirez! We believe Dr. Ford!
Republican leaders rejected the new allegation, calling it
another orchestrated, last-minute hit on the nominee.
And it's not untypical for our friends on the other side to pull that kind of crap.
Hawaii Democrat Mazie Hirono.
Because they really believe that women just sit around making up these things.
How credible do you think her story is, given that she herself admits she's got some memory gaps?
This is why the FBI needs to investigate.
Psychologist Christine Blasey Ford, who says Kavanaugh held her down and groped her in high school, is slated to go before the Senate on Thursday. Now Michael Avenatti, the attorney for porn star Stormy Daniels, tells Congress he has a client who is prepared to meet with the FBI forthwith to disclose how she was victimized.
I've never sexually assaulted anyone. I did not have sexual intercourse or anything close to sexual intercourse in high school or for many years thereafter.
And Nancy Cordes joins us now. So, Nancy, as you covered in your report, Christine Blasey Ford, Kavanaugh's first accuser, is set to testify this Thursday. Do we expect to see testimony from his latest accuser as well in the future?
We haven't gotten any indication of that yet, Elaine, but senators are still processing this latest allegation. And as far as we know, Democrats aren't pushing to hear from her in a hearing setting, and she hasn't pushed to be heard in a hearing setting. She has said that she believes that the FBI should investigate her claims, and she fully admits that there are some gaps in her memory when it comes to that night some 30 years ago. But we don't, at this point, anticipate that she will be testifying. And then, of course, there's a sort of mystery accuser represented by Michael Avenatti, who we have not heard from publicly yet, but we're told we will hear from her soon. Where those allegations go is anyone's guess.
Well, Nancy, have public protests against Judge Kavanaugh put pressure on lawmakers to fully investigate these allegations?
You know, it's certainly hard to avoid these protests, especially because the protesters have been making a point of going to the offices of that small group of Republicans who are still technically undecided. So those senators and their staffers hear from those protesters on a near daily basis at this point. They sort of camp out outside of their offices. Sometimes they get arrested outside of their offices. At one point today, there was a group of protesters outside Senator Susan Collins's office and they were, the women there, some of them were describing moments in their past where they themselves had not come forward when they had been sexually assaulted, to sort of make the point that they believe these accusers who are coming out now 35 years after the fact because something similar happened to them and they didn't come forward at the time. So these senators are very well aware that those protesters are out there, but at the same time, they've been getting deluged all along. You know, the Susan Collinses and Lisa Murkowskis and Jeff Flakes of the world, they knew that they were going to be in the spotlight. They have been getting death threats in some cases. They've been getting very civil letters as well, and phone calls and mailers. So there's no way that they don't know just how heated this has become on both sides of the aisle.
Well, Nancy, if a vote on Kavanaugh's nomination were to move forward, does he have enough support to be confirmed despite these allegations?
It's really hard to say because, as I was just mentioning, there is a small group of undecided Republicans who kept a pretty low profile on Monday. Lisa Murkowski did say that these accusers deserve to be heard, that she can't make a decision until she's heard what they have to say in this hearing. But beyond that, you know, they really haven't weighed in one way or the other. They say that they're keeping an open mind, and if all of the Democrats in the Senate vote no, then he can only afford to lose the support of 2 Republican senators. Now, the Republican leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, did insist today, some people think it was a bit of bravado, but you know, whether it was or not, he insisted that this will come up for a vote on the Senate floor. So first you've got that vote in the Senate Judiciary Committee, perhaps this week Friday, perhaps next week, and then it would go to the Senate floor. He insists that that is going to happen, that Republicans are not backing down at all.
Well, Kavanaugh, as you know, doubled down on his denial of the allegations, and the president and key Republicans have been vocal about his innocence. Is there any way to tell, Nancy, if that strategy is working?
You know, it certainly is difficult, obviously, for the small group of Republican senators who are still undecided to avoid the pressure from their own colleagues, from Republican senators who believe that they have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change the balance of the Supreme Court, possibly for decades. That is an opportunity that doesn't come along very often at all. So they are getting the full court press from their Republican colleagues. So far, we just don't know. And it really is so hard to say how this testimony from Christine Blasey Ford on Thursday is going to affect everyone here on Capitol Hill. You know, all we have is one adult picture of her with sunglasses on. We've read her words. We haven't heard her speak them in person or on television. She's kept a very low profile. And so it really is very difficult, Elaine, to say at this point how these senators are going to feel about Kavanaugh at the end of the day when they haven't even heard from Blasey Ford themselves.
Right, so much more to come. Nancy Cordes. Nancy, thank you.
You're welcome.